Hello, guys. Welcome to Annotated. Annotated is the place where Black and African stories can live outside of the margins, figuratively as well as literally. Okay, and my name is Temi, and this is The Pulse. And the excellent thing about The Pulse is that you can engage and communicate with me and our wonderful guest today. And that is what I want. So if you want to call up and be a part of the conversation, you can do that by calling 0203 87 87 870. Or you can comment on the YouTube comment section, and you can also get involved with the Discord, and the link to that is somewhere in the captions. Today, we have an amazing guest who I am going to introduce you to shortly. But just to let you know what you can expect from Annotated, for those of you who weren't here with us on Monday when we had a good time. So every Wednesday, usually around 7 p.m., we will be having a lot of book chat and book engagement conversations and all sorts going on in this space at this time. We will have some amazing guests that follow us or that are a part of the conversation each week. And those guests will stem from people within the publishing community and industry, authors, editors, and general sort of writers, anyone within the sort of bookish community. So we're looking forward to that. Now, today, I thought it would be important to start off at the beginning stage of where all books arise from, and that is when a publisher decides that this is the book that I'm going to risk it all for. So today, our guest tonight saw empty bookshelves in Nigeria and decided to fill them by building one of Africa's most important publishing houses from scratch. Bibi Bakare-Yussuf is the co-founder of Cassava Republic Press. No publishing experience, no business background, just an unshakable belief that African stories deserved to be owned by Africans. And 20 years later, she's done exactly that. Bibi, welcome to Annotated. Woo! Welcome. Thank you for being here. How are you today?
Thank you so much, Temi. That was such a wonderful introduction.
Thank you. I know it's been a really hot day today, and I'm sure you would have rather been at the park having a picnic or something, but you decided to spend your evening with us. And for that, I am so grateful. So thank you.
I couldn't be in a better place. Thank you.
I love that. So we're going to get straight into it, straight down to business. And I wanted to sort of just, introduce our viewers and our community to you. And that is to say that you are the founder of Cassava Republic Publishing or Press. And so let's start at the beginning. Why that name? What does that name have to do with books? I've read your answer before, but let's share it with the audience.
I think that cassava is a food crop that grows across the continent, across the Black world, whether I always say from Benin to Bahia. So when cassava is in Bahia, they make all kinds of amazing stuff, from ice cream to gari to all manners of stuff. And also, importantly, cassava grows on it can grow on any soil. It doesn't need a lot of grooming in terms of from a soil perspective. And I felt at the time when I was in Nigeria, I thought that a lot of creativity is happening when the environment doesn't seem conducive to creativity, yet people are creating against all odds. And I think that is the story of Black people the world over, where we've created all manners of things when we were never really meant to exist and stuff. So cassava was I always think if I have a company, I would name it after a food crop, food. And the Republic was simply, I arrived in Nigeria at a time post 1999, things seems to be all kinds of possibilities. So it was almost as if there's a return to the post-independence era where there's energy and there's excitement and there's a new republic being birthed. And so I was like, Cassava Republic, why not?
I love that. And why books?
Because I went to Nigeria as a scholar from the UK.
Okay.
So I was a scholar to work at the University of Ife, Obafemi Awolowo University, as a research scholar. And I thought that coming from the UK in particular and thinking about blackness as opposed to Africanness and thinking about how the ways in which black people are positioned in the world. Black people, we live in an anti-black world. And because we live in an anti-black world, one of the ways in which black humanity is always contested is not whether we can dance or whether we can sing, whether we can do sports, is whether we have logos, whether we can think. And books are the physical manifestation of reasoning, of our ability to think, right? So if you think about a German philosopher like Hegel, who says Africa has no history, right? And not because we don't have history, we have plenty of history, but because of the ways in which our history has been codified or documented is very different to the ways in which Europeans document their own narratives and their own stories. So I felt that whether we like it or not, we're in the modern era now, we're here now. Books is one of the ways in which you can document histories, but more importantly, a book in its form condenses all the art forms together. So in books you can talk about music, you can talk about visual arts, you can talk about dance, you can do all of the art forms it's almost like a congealment of existence existing in this physical form. And so it was the one thing I thought I could participating, I could support, and even though I didn't have a business, I didn't come from a business background, nor did I have a publishing background, but I thought if I was to enter into the conversation, the book is a good way to enter that conversation.
I love that. And you've been doing it superbly for the last 20 years, and we'll get into that. But I wanted to let the viewers at home know that we have a sort of question today that is going to sort of support and guide a lot of our discussion today. And I want us to ask ourselves and have the conversation, is the West ready for African stories? Okay, so that is a question. I don't need you to answer it right now, but I want to know whether the people at home believe that the West is ready for African stories. So in order to get involved in this conversation, you can give us a call on 0203 87 87 870. I don't know if I said too many 87s. I'll say it again. 0203 87 87 870. Or you can call up on Discord, and I can see your comments as you're commenting, and I would love to hear your voice and know what you think at home. So the unique thing about Cassava Republic is that you have a focus on Black stories, African and Black authors, and maybe some non-Black African authors if you think what they're saying is pertinent to, I guess, the Black experience. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us, what was the, if any, pushback in trying to get these Black stories into the market?
I think because we started 20 years ago in Nigeria, in a Black country, there weren't much of a pushback as such. I think what we had was people feeling that, is this really going to be possible to do non-educational books? Because that's what dominates the African market, the African publishing landscape. And so if you want to make money, you will gravitate towards educational books rather than trade books, which is what we publish. And so it was more of the anxiety around how you're going to marry money and mission together, and that's always a challenge. So there was, because where we started from was within the continent, within a black majority country. Even when I say black majority country, that doesn't mean that anti-blackness doesn't exist in such a milieu. But it was less that we had the freedom to experiment, to do things that we would not have been able to do perhaps if we were starting from a more mature market. So we were able to kind of think, okay, outside the box. We didn't have the bookshops, we didn't have the distribution. You have to set up your own infrastructure, right? So that's a challenge in itself, but it also opens up opportunities as well.
Yeah. And I think when you're starting in a place that produced the likes of Wole Soyinka and stuff, I feel like they're used to a good African story.
Yeah, I think on one level you would think so, that they would be used to African stories, but the reality is a lot of the books that were circulating in Nigeria at the time we started were a lot of things like John Gresham, Sidney Sheldon, all the kind of European airport literature and stuff. So there was more the commercial fiction, and people's relationship to literature was around what they read in school. So your encounter with Wole Soyinka, Achebe, Ngugi, Florent Nwapa, Buchi Emecheta, Mariam Abbas, Olongaleta is because you encounter them through school rather than necessarily as something you would read just for the pure joy of reading.
Yeah. That reminds me that the government has said that 2026 is the year of national reading because people have fallen out of the joy of reading. Yeah. So I want to stand on that campaign and allow for people to get into reading in a way that is enjoyable. And I love that you just reeled off a whole bunch of African authors, some of which that I'm unfamiliar with, and I feel a bit like, but I love that you've done that. So I'm probably going to ask you to text me that list again, and I'm going to share it so that everybody can be introduced to these authors. KL, thanks for commenting, has said, yes, there are now, not sure whether they are ready to hear these stories from our perspective. And I think that's such an important thing because I run the Blacklisted Book Club, so oftentimes I am exposed to publishers, non-black publishers, traditional publishers, and editors and stuff like that, as well as authors. And one of the things that I hear sometimes is that when a black person or an African person is telling their story from their perspective, sometimes the editors don't get that and they ask for certain things to be removed. And you're like, contextually, this needs to be in there. So you as a publisher and dealing with not just Nigerian authors, but black authors and authors from a different culture that you are from, how do you ensure that the integrity of a culture is kept within the books, or if that's even something that you think is important?
I think I think first and foremost, my philosophy around editing is that editing is not correction. Editing is to expand, is to make the voice in the text to come alive and to be truth to the terms in which it states itself to be, where it's claiming itself to be. That's what, for me, editing is. So it's not about erasure. It's how do we expand what it is that you're saying so that it is legible to a broader range of people. And sometimes people will think, oh, you're editing my culture away. And I don't think we have that problem. But I think when a black author is with a white publishing editor who's trying to say, you're writing for a market. We're trying to we need to ensure that the market understands what you're trying to do. So they might say, because they don't understand it, so they'll be like, we need to take this out, we need to take this out. But for me, because of my own editorial policy, where I think that it doesn't matter whether the market understands. Our job is to make the market understand. Our job is not to necessarily follow taste, is to create new tastes, is to create new desires. And therefore, if you're trying to create new desires, you're going to introduce people to what they don't know they want already. So I think it's about really being unafraid when you encounter a text that is strange to you, right? And I think for me as a publisher, as an editor who is very much interested in language, in how people are languaging inside what they're trying to do, I want to get into another world. I want to travel without leaving my house. And so I just want to make sure that the author is alive to what it is that they're really trying to say, and help them to make sure that what they intend to say at the beginning is what they're actually saying. Because sometimes an author is inside their text. They're so inside the text that they can't see what they're doing anymore. And the role of the editor is to help them to zoom out a bit in order to zoom back in. So I think that I think things are changing even amongst white editors, that they are having to kind of be a little bit more sensitive to the difference that they're having to encounter. And for authors, I also think that even for Black authors, where I always say to authors, who lives in your head? Whose voice is inside your head? For many of us, the voice, our first encounter with literature is probably through whiteness. So that's what lives in our head. And you sometimes see it creeping in even in the Black author's writing. And it's our job to kind of say, who's knock, knock, who's there? Can we kind of see what it is that you're trying to say, is to really help them to ensure they stay within the integrity of the story.
I love that. And speaking of whiteness, and in terms of our question today, is the West really ready for African stories? We were talking earlier and I expressed my sort of frustration at this point at the fact that I feel that Black stories aren't given the same levels of publication and publicity that their non-Black counterparts seem to be receiving. And I used an example of 50 Shades of Grey that I remember at the time. I saw that book everywhere, at the bus stop, on the side of the bus, on the TV, in Asda, Tesco, Sainsbury's, and any other grocery place that you guys shop at. I saw it everywhere. But when I think of Black authors of the same ilk, if not extremely better, I don't see that. And I think your perspective was one that I wasn't expecting, and I would like for you to share it. I would like for you to share it because we have a lot of people within the community who are aspiring authors, who are currently writing, who have published books and have seemed to be having like a hard time trying to get their book out there. So from somebody who does this as their bread and butter, what do you have to say about that?
I think that we have to start from the premise that a book, to consume a book is a solitary activity, is demanding of the person that's reading in the way that it's so singular. Unlike when you're listening to music. If you're listening to music, you can do other activities. When you're watching a film, you can also do other activities. Yeah. With books, it requires you to stop. Yes. Your life must stop. So therefore, not everyone is going to be able to participate en masse in the way that people can participate with film, music, and all the other art forms, right?
Yes.
So if we start from that first principle, and then we think about how the market for books, the average books that are sold in the UK is like 250 copies or less, right?
Wait, say that again.
250 copies.
Huh?
250 copies.
The average book
yes.
in the UK?
Yes. If you publish a book, there's maybe 250 copies will be sold if you're lucky.
So how are these people getting on the bestseller list?
Yes. So the people on the bestseller list is, if, let's say, over 5,000 books are published every month, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 2 or 3 will go on the bestseller list.
Okay.
Right? Or maybe 5, 10 will get the major reviews, what you've just described with 50 Shades of Grey, for example. And if we take a book like 50 Shades of Grey as an example, it is a book that before it found a publisher, it has already created an audience because it was, first of all, a self-published book. Before it was taken on, it had become big within the fanfic world, right? And then a publisher took it on, and then it went crazy.
Okay.
And 50 Shades of Grey toppled Harry Potter as the biggest selling book in British history to date, right?
Okay, so let's just take a step back. 50 Shades of Grey, I can't even remember the author's name, apologies. But we're saying that author created an audience and a fan base by herself as a self-publisher, and she had already been selling books via the self-publishing route. And because of that, it's like how we see today, like people want to see your numbers and all of this kind of stuff. And because of that, she was able to get a publisher.
Yeah.
And they already had like a proof of concept, which allowed them to back.
Exactly.
Okay. So are we saying that for the Black authors and African authors, that they need to do better maybe, or in creating like a brand for themselves?
I think people, if you're serious about the business of books, not just being an author in the kind of artistic, romantic sense, then you have to think about your brand.
Yeah.
Right? And also, if you think about an author like, Chimamanda, for example, who's probably Africa's most well-known author, and you compare her sales of Dream Count with Sally Rooney's what's the new book, her latest book with the blue cover? I can't remember. Like a lot of people don't know in terms of whether Black or white. More people will probably know of Chimamanda than they would know of Sally Rooney.
Absolutely, yes.
But the Sally Rooney sales topples Chimamanda hands down. Right?
Every time or on this occasion?
No, generally, hands down.
Wow, okay.
Right? So and we have to remember that what is the percentage of Black people in the UK? That's, so when we're saying we want something, we have to also think, who are the people that's going to buy, right?
Yeah.
These books. Yes, we all read across cultures and across race and stuff, but first and foremost, we have to be the audience for our books, and then that would then spread it will go viral.
I'm seeing here Miss Turner has said, and Miss Turner is co-founder of Blacklisted Book Club. Thank you, Miss Turner, for joining us today. She says they are ready because it's stories they've never heard. African mythology books have been popularized over the years and now are being adapted into films and showing up even in animation. She says now this genre of our stories can thrive elsewhere. And she also says it's been a gradual process, but we are bolder, I think, and more forthcoming with our stories' perspective. So they will take what we give them. So what do you have to say about that?
I 100%, no, not 100%. I take it back. I 103% agree.
Okay.
And I agree because, the question is not whether they're ready.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether they're ready. We are ready for ourselves. And I think that's the most important thing. I think if you're ready for yourself and you go into the world with confidence, with a sense of I can, the world will receive you from a place from your own confidence. If you go into the world with timidity, the world will engage with you in that way as well. And so because we are ready, everyone else they'll come along on the journey.
Really? Miss Bibi, are you just all optimistic?
No, but they are already coming along on the journey because we have more books. Cassava Republic is 20 years old. We have more books than when we started. More books have been published by Black writers in the UK than when we started. Okay, it's less than what it was post-George Floyd moment.
Absolutely.
It's gone down a bit, but the point is that the journey has begun. We are already on there. The important thing that we as a community needs to support, we need to get behind our books, our authors.
I want to know what the community say, because I feel like we have a lot of people that are in this kind of space. And I want to know if you feel like, or if you have the sense as the consumer that the industry is ready for these African stories. Vicky Gaines says, yeah, those that aren't ready will get ready. I love that. They should get ready. But then having said that, yeah, we're ready. I feel like we've been ready since.
Listen, publishing is where commerce and art converges.
Yes.
Publishers will go to where money is. Publishers want to make money, right? So if there's a book, if there's opportunity to find a black 50 Shades of Grey and they'll be killing it, they will publish it. It is not that whiteness love money. If they're able to make money. I don't want to say this on a book podcast, but if we think about the founding relationship of blackness to whiteness is one of extraction.
Exploitation?
Extraction.
What's the difference?
Extraction is vampiric. You take from it in order for you to exploit it.
Yes, okay.
Right? So it's one of extraction. And so if they can't get it from us, they would. If they think there's money to be made and it's available for them, they will do it. So I don't think, I think if we as a community are able to get behind the books en masse, right? People will follow.
I feel like that's interesting because earlier, a couple of weeks ago, or maybe last week, there was a report that came out about music, and it highlighted that when it comes to music, and I'm paraphrasing here, but when it comes to music, that it's the black people and the black experience and the black relationship to music is where the money is, right? So I want to know what's the difference between money and literature. Sorry, between music and literature. I feel like these, is it that maybe as a community of black and Africans, we aren't necessarily reading as much and we aren't buying the books enough?
We're certainly not buying the books as much as we should. And supporting the publishers. So there's that. But then there's also, because they're ready for us, whether they are publishing enough of us. We talk about it. It's always framed around representation and visibility. I am less interested in representation. Representation can only get us so far.
Yes.
What I'm interested in is infrastructure. Who owns the infrastructure of power? We're in this space called the Pulse.
Yes.
That you guys are building black infrastructure of the imagination, right? Which is what I'm trying to do as well. If we don't own the means of production as black people, the means of production, the avenue for distribution and all of that stuff, we will be having a lot of empty conversations about whether they allow us in or they don't allow us in. But if there's enough black publishers who are producing, and black people also trust the black publishers to give the black publishers to nurture them into existence, right?
Yes.
We will have a different conversation.
I love that. It's like you were present in this morning's TDA episode because exactly what you just said was part of the conversation that we were having today. Christ is Life has said, I feel like only certain parts of the world are ready and the rest are ready but just don't want to accept it.
You know, for me, whether they accept or they don't accept is neither here nor there for me. For me, feel as black people, we are enough for each other.
Yes.
We're enough audience. If white people or non-black people come on the journey with me, excellent.
Okay.
If they don't want to come on the journey, I leave you to it. When you're ready, people, like the Igbo saying, whenever you wake up is your morning, right? When people wake up, we'll be here, right?
Yeah.
We were here from beginning of time. We will be here long after, whether you decide we are interesting enough for you to want to look at our stories or not. But the most important thing is that I would more interested in encouraging and supporting black infrastructural building than whether we are able to enter the White House or whether we're able to enter white spaces.
I love that. That is so important. Somebody has asked, Dee has asked, what is the initial capital required to start a publishing company? When you started 20 years ago, what was that capital like? Did you get any funding? How are you funding now? And let's go with those questions first.
So if I know what I know now, I don't think I would have started a publishing company.
Wow.
Even though I would encourage Black people to really take publishing seriously and to have it resourced really well. So that's my first initial comment on that. But, when we started Cassava Republic, it was because I just really felt we cannot just leave the control of Black narrative in white hands. We just can't. So it was from that interest, that commitment, that I just thought we'll start. And so would I say we were just doing it as we went along. So I cannot tell you what kind of capital we started with.
Yes.
But I know that we had to spend a lot of initial money, and a lot of mistakes it was almost like everything sunk to the ground, it was like bottomless pit and stuff. But today I think that to really start a publishing company, I would suggest that people try and get funding, look for investors.
Okay.
Even if it's angel investors amongst a community of people coming together to do it, than what we did, where we're using our personal income. My partner at the time, who I co-founded Cassava Republic with, working, and then I'm putting the energy into it, and all the consultancies and work that we were both doing, pouring that money into Cassava Republic, releasing some remortgaging and all of that stuff into putting it in. And so today we are self-sustaining to an extent. We get some funding here and there to do certain special projects and what have you. But it's always challenging. Like whether you're Black or white publisher, you are always on the cusp of making it or on the cusp of bankruptcy. So you're always on that verge of collapsing and the verge of there's a promise.
I love that. So in terms of, because we have, like I said earlier, we do have some amazing people who are in the process of writing books and stuff like that. So as a publisher, if there is anybody in here in our community that's watching at home that's like, oh, I need to get this book published, what are some of the things that you look for before you decide that you're going to take a book on?
I think I want to step back from before you even come to us.
Yes.
I think that if you've got a book that you have a manuscript that you want to publish, I think first and foremost you really need to think why. Ask yourself why. Is my word so important that the world must see it, share it, read it? Ask yourself that real serious question. That's number one. Number two, are you ready for the work? Because the writing itself is one part of the journey. The other part is the making the book public, because that's what publishing is about, making ideas public. Are you ready for that? And that takes time. That is it's another level of work that it demands. So are you ready for that? And number three, I would say to people, really think about your brand. Because gone are the days when an author delivers a manuscript to a publisher and the publisher just kind of goes off and make magic with it.
Yeah.
A lot of audience nowadays, we are in a celebrity-driven culture. A lot of your potential readers, they want a relationship with you. They want to know you. They want to have a sense of who you are.
Yeah.
You're almost like your interior life, which you have to be careful not to give people access to. But they want to have. You need to build a brand, basically. So to really start thinking about who's the community that's going to receive your book. I always say to authors, even when we've signed them up, and they say, "I need to publish my so-so." I said, "No, but calm down. No one is waiting for your book. The only person that's waiting for your book is yourself,
Yeah.
or the community that you've created. to receive it. So the reason I'm stepping back is to say you've got to create a community for your work. You've got to be part of a writing community to support you, because it's a hard journey, right? One of the authors that we published, The Mercy Step by Marcia Hutchinson,
Yes.
who has just been longlisted for the Women's Prize.
Yes.
She was rejected 54 times. That's tenacity. I think if I was rejected 10 times, I'll be done, right? That's tenacity. So you need to make sure you insulate yourself with a community of other writers who understand what it is that you're trying to do. And so by the time you get to, I am ready, you then need to think, okay, if you're based in the UK, for example, most publishers, you have to go through agents, right? Agent will mediate the relationship between you, author, and publisher. And then there are smaller publishers that would you can approach directly and stuff. So what do I look for when a manuscript is in front of me? Once the agent or the publisher I'm looking for not just a good writer. Does this have authority in their craft? Is the story compelling? Is it making me kind of not sleep? Is it inside my head? Right, and you can always get that from maybe the first 5 or 6 pages. That you can see, you read a story and it just pulls you in and just like, it won't let you, like, you know when you want to watch a horror, like you watch Sinners, and you're like gripped, you can't stop. And so for me, it's about a story that has authority, that feels confident within itself, a story that is alive to its own motives. Because sometimes you see a manuscript and it's all over the place and it's just not coming together, right? So I'm always looking for in a manuscript, in a story, that is it telling me something different? And also because I'm really interested in the environment, and I know that we're going to have to publish this in a book form, not just in even in digital form. It has footprint.
Yeah.
I'm always asking the question: should trees go down because of this book?
Is this worth a tree being cut down? That what you're thinking? That's
yes,
harsh.
I think like that. I think is a tree worth cutting down?
Is a tree worth this story?
Is it worth it? Number one. And number two, I think, will this story, in 500 years' time, would people think, wow, gosh, this gives us a nice documentary of what happened in our present. So I'm a scholar who happens to be a publisher.
Yes.
So I'm always thinking about what I call the archive of the future. I think, if we open the archive of the global literary archive in 500 years' time, I want to be part of the people that curated that book. And do I think this story will last the test of time? Do I think 50 Shades of Grey will last the test of time? It hasn't even lasted this timeline, right? And I think some books are like that. They're just for the
moment.
They're for the moment. They're McDonald's. They're those food.
Food.
They're fast food. And I also don't think trees should be falling for those kinds of books either, right? So they should live in the digital world where the footprint is slightly less and stuff. So those are things that's roaming through my mind.
I love that, because Mercy Step, you've read that book, that manuscript, and you were like, these trees are going to fall today.
I read the first, I don't know, five pages of the Mercy Step, and I thought, wow, gosh.
Yes.
And then the editor also read it, and we were like, both of us were WhatsApping each other at night saying, yes.
Yeah. Because I haven't read it yet, but I did go to an event and I saw her. She was at this event and she read an excerpt from it. And I said, I was on a book buying ban, but I said, I need to buy this book. I need to read it. So I haven't read it yet, and I'm looking forward to reading it. So I'm glad that you read those 5 pages and said, this is the one. Tim said, do you think the success globally of African stories is happening on African terms or still Western validation?
Africans, we don't own the means of production yet. And this, we
Sorry, break that down. Explain that to me. What you mean by that?
we don't, I mean, like, Cassava Republic is one form of means of production, but in terms of the symbolic legitimization of our stories, the prizes are still in the West. The things that the validation machine or validation technology is still here, right? That's not to say that African writers are not telling their stories in the way they want to tell it. It is that a lot of us are still yearning to be published by certain publishing houses because they still give the credentials. So we're still in the era of credentialism. And this is why I said earlier, that if we understand that we are enough for each other, for ourselves, right, then our mindset will change. And if we have a sense that a book that that I as an author, it may not have a life. It may come out now, but doesn't have the circulation or the ambition I'd originally projected to that book. And then, but to be patient, right? I always say to people, as a publisher, I am unusually patient. And the reason why I'm unusually patient as a publisher is because I have a longer arc of history behind me and in front of me that I think as a people, we cannot afford to be in a hurry. We have to be patient because when we're impatient, we can lose things quickly. You know, we published a book in Nigeria called Independence by Sarah Ladipo Manika. When we first published that book, we sold a few thousand copies in Nigeria. And then, 5-7 years later, boom, we sold 3.5 million copies.
Wow.
Right? That's unprecedented.
Yes.
Right? And because they decided to put it on the curriculum, and then that sales bloom, people at home, parents who are seeing their children reading this book, they pick up the book. And that the revenue from that book bankrolled us for the next 7 or 8 years.
That is fantastic.
Right? And so you want a book like that. Every author wants to be Sarah Ladipo Manika. But it's not gonna happen. And that's reality.
It's not gonna happen frequently.
Frequently, yes. No. Because these are outliers. Bestsellers are outliers. But it is presented as though it is the norm.
Yes.
And so which makes people crazy. People then start having unrealistic expectations, turning in on themselves, thinking of, oh my God, I failed. When you're likely to sell 250 copies, or 500 copies, or 1,000 copies.
That's so crazy. So you mean someone can write and spend, 7 years or 8 years writing a book to sell 250 copies?
Mm-hmm. Even musicians. I have friends who are working at Sony, and they say, they will pump money into a particular artist, and it's sunk cost.
You want to mention
who
those artists are? I wanted to ask, you mentioned about the archive and that you want to be involved in stories that would remain in that kind of like canon, that archive of stories that are classics. So I wanted to ask, and I'm going to create this reading recommendation list. What are 3, if you can think of 3 stories that you have either been involved with or that you wish you had been involved with or that you've read maybe growing up or whenever that you would say are in that archive list?
Nah.
Yes.
From Africa or the Black world in general?
Africa or Black.
Okay.
Or and Black.
I think, and I probably would mention mostly, I think a book like Miriam Abba's So Long a Letter, it's already there.
Yeah.
You said 3.
It could be 3 if you can think of 3.
Of course I can think of 10. I can think of 20.
Let's go with 3.
Let's go with 3.
So Long a Story.
So Long a Letter.
A Letter, sorry, I know that.
By Miriam Abba. I will go for Sarah Ladipo Manika's Like a Mule Bringing Ice Cream to the Sun. I think that book is going to become canonical. I think a book.
This is your last one. Make it like
Oh my gosh. Pressure.
no pressure.
Bernardine Evaristo's Mr. Loverman.
Ooh, okay. That's a good mix. Have you watched the series?
Yeah.
Did you love it?
Yeah.
I want to... okay, there's so much. Sorry, I'm a nerd when it comes to these things. Okay, let's talk about, because we've got like about 10 minutes left.
Wow, it's gone fast.
It's gone so fast. And I don't know if our people at home that were here on Monday, if you want more of my... No, I feel embarrassed now to read my writing in front of somebody who publishes books for a living. So we might have to do that next week. I don't know. But if you really want to hear what happened between Tamar and Jacob, let me know in
Who's
the
Tamar
comment.
and Jacob?
Oh, I don't know if you really want to know. I don't know if you want to know, but no, someone said read it, please. And I know that person doesn't really like me in real life. So this is what it is. But I wanted to ask, in terms of that sort of, when you're publishing books now, do you have in the back of your mind, like, oh, would this book be great on film? Would this book be great as a series? And how does that relationship work? Do you have the rights to it or something like that?
I don't. When I read a manuscript, I'm not thinking about whether the afterlife of the book, of that manuscript.
Yes.
I'm thinking purely in terms of the manuscript itself and the story, how to make the story sing to the world so that whoever picks it up they're gonna love it. And then once you've kind of made the decision that I want to publish this is a book that just saying, it's gorgeous,
Yes.
it's unputdownable, then you kind of, if you have the rights to, obviously you try and negotiate rights. Agents will say, no, we're only giving you this amount.
Right, yeah.
We're only giving publishing rights. We're going to hold on to the film rights. But even when they hold on to the film rights, you hope that it will find a good home to go to, and because a film it's another life for the book, and it allows people to return to the book as well.
Yeah.
So, but we're not thinking about all the afterlives of the book, but just like, let's think about what's in front of us first.
Okay. And I love that. And we mentioned sort of briefly earlier that you are celebrating 20 years of Cassava Republic Press. And so how are we celebrating, and how can people at home be involved, and what do you need the people at home to do in order for us to see Cassava Republic for the next 20 years and beyond?
Thank you so much for that question. That's really... it's a very generative and generous question, so thank you. I think having this podcast is a beginning of that celebration, because I'm really in this place. We put our authors here rather than me, so this is a nice celebration. I think for me, the best, if we want to focus our commitment to Black imaginary and Black infrastructure of the imagination and building that, the most important thing we can do is to support us and support other publishers like Jacaranda Press, Jacaranda Books, Hope Road, and stuff like that, is to really support and look at what are they doing, what are their lists doing, what are they doing, how can I amplify? Because what it is about amplification. Mm-hmm. We do one work, and the next is the audience, they do the rest. And we without I always say the writers and the publishers, they produce a literary culture. The audience, they produce the publishing world. They make it survive. They're the ones that allow us to be in business. If there's no audience, there's no business. So I think the biggest support, listeners, you can do is to check us out. make a commitment to buy Black, support Black publishers, and reach out to us to say, hey,
Yeah.
And also if you are thinking about, you have a book that you're publishing and you have an agent, even if you don't have an agent, send it out to, don't wait for 54 rejections. Look at and it doesn't mean that the Black publishers will say yes either, but at least try, try and check out Black publishers. Yes, they may not pay the kind of advance that you might expect from a bigger publishing house. Anyway, advance is getting smaller and smaller for everybody. So, but at least you will have a good home where people are committed and you're on a journey together and you can experiment and work together to see how what is possible and how you can make build your own writing career.
Yes. And can people get your published books directly from the Cassava
You can get it from our website.
Republic website, yeah.
Yes, or you can get it from bookshop.org or anywhere like Afori books if you're in.
Yes.
If you think about, if you can go and order from Black-owned bookshops and stuff so that we can help to be building our infrastructures. Yeah, New Beacon, Afori in Brighton, but you can order them online as well as Cassava Republic.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here and joining us today. I see people being like, read it. I just remembered that, look, my battery is dead, so I can't actually read it today. We're going to have to wait till next week to see what Tamar and Jacob get up to. But let me see if I have something on here that might be worth reading. I don't know. Let's see. If not, we'll save it.
If not, I would just say thank you to you. Thank you to the organizers or the owners of the Pulse and for making this space, to creating this space of Blackness, and also you setting this up. And to the listeners out there, thank you. We really appreciate you because we exist because there are readers and there are listeners.
Yes. Thank you so much. This has been so exciting. Guys, there is... Ooh, what's this? Oh, no, this isn't it. I don't have any... Sorry, my battery's dead, so I can't really... I'm trying to look and I can't find anything. Let's see. In our last few minutes.
They're telling you to read it.
They're like, read it. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. I will read something on Wednesday, next week, Wednesday. But yes, thank you so much. Are there any last minute questions before we go? No? I'll wait a few moments. Next week, we have an author joining us. So get ready, get your pens and papers because we will be having a an annotation sort of session. So there will be work for you to do. Thank you so much. I don't know why people are saying what a coincidence. Actually, I think it's God because one day when I actually want Miss Bibi to publish, she can't know that these were my humble beginnings. She could never know that. So thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week, Wednesday, hopefully at 7 p.m. But yeah, I hope you enjoy the weather. Be good. Keep reading. Probably somewhere like on Discord or somewhere, I will have like a list of who we're going to see next, reading lists. Like we've got these recommendations that we'll just keep building and then hopefully the community get involved. But thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you so much, everybody.